Imagine you're just an ordinary person, someone with a family, a dream, and a moral compass guiding your sense of right and wrong. Until one day, you're faced with a simple command. Before you sits a stranger bound. A person in a lab coat instructs you to press a button. Though the stranger flinches as pain surges through them, you hesitate, then obey. This wasn't fiction. It was the real-life Milgram experiment, and over 65% of participants followed orders to the very end, even as the person in the chair screamed in agony. What happens when this obedience unfolds in the real world? Imagine yourself an otherwise good person handed an order and following through. How does a good person become capable of unimaginable cruelty? We like to think only inherently evil people. The psychopaths, sociopaths can commit atrocities. But what if I told you that under the right conditions you could do the same? Psychology shows us that the scariest thing about human nature isn't the existence of evil. It's that the potential for evil exists within all of us. This is the core idea behind what psychologist Philip Zimbardo calls the Lucifer effect, named after the biblical angel Lucifer, who fell from grace and became the devil. Zimbardo's theory explores how ordinary, morally sound individuals can be transformed into perpetrators of evil. In psychology, the Lucifer effect refers to the process by which situational and systemic forces can lead individuals to act in ways that are completely out of character, and often deeply unethical or cruel. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It begins with dehumanization, seeing others as less than human. It grows through diffusion of responsibility, telling ourselves it's not my fault, I was just following orders. And it's reinforced by conformity, obedience to authority, anonymity, and group pressure. The Lucifer effect explains how people don't become evil because of who they are. They become evil because of where they are, who's around them, and what system they're in. The descent into darkness doesn't happen overnight. It's a series of small, almost invisible steps. It begins with small moral compromises, a harmless lie, a minor betrayal, bending personal values for a greater good. Each compromise lowers the threshold for the next. What once felt unthinkable becomes acceptable. This foot-in-the-door effect has been recorded in both psychological studies and real-world scandals. Watergate began as a minor break-in, then snowballed into full-blown conspiracy. Enron's massive fraud began with small financial manipulations. History shows us that the same process occurs in war crimes and genocide. It starts with seemingly small acts, just following orders, enforcing minor injustices, until people find themselves deeply complicit. Every big atrocity begins with a small compromise. The moment you think, I would never do that, is often the exact moment your guard drops. But moral erosion alone isn't enough to create a monster. The second force is obedience to authority, one of the most powerful psychological pressures we face. Enter the infamous Milgram experiment. In the early 1960s, psychologist Stanley Milgram asked ordinary individuals to administer electric shocks to a learner whenever they answered wrongly. With each wrong answer, the voltage increased. The learner screamed in pain, begged to stop, then went silent. Despite believing they were literally harming or even killing someone, 65% of participants continued obeying the experimenter's commands, all the way to the maximum 450 volts. Why? Because they were told, the experiment requires it. Milgram's findings offer chilling insight into history's darkest moments. Soldiers in Nazi Germany, guards in concentration camps, perpetrators at My Lai, thalidomide scandal participants, even corporate employees committing financial fraud. They often said, I was just following orders. Obedience disarms moral responsibility, turning normal people into instruments of harm. Dehumanization happens when we stop seeing someone as fully human. We compare them to animals, vermin, pigs, to objects, targets, obstacles, or to diseases, plague, virus. Once this happens, moral rules break down. You don't feel guilt for hurting something that isn't human. Historical example 1, the Holocaust. In Nazi Germany, Jewish people weren't just oppressed, they were systematically dehumanized. Propaganda described them as rats, parasites, or filth. Children grew up with anti-Semitic cartoons and textbooks that portrayed Jews as dangerous, dirty, and subhuman. By the time the violence began, forced labor, ghettos, concentration camps, the moral resistance had eroded in everyday citizens. Neighbors turned away, bystanders became collaborators, and the perpetrators? They often claimed they were just doing their jobs. Historical example 2. Rwandan genocide, 1994. In Rwanda, the Tutsi minority was referred to as inyenzi, cockroaches. Over the radio, Hutu extremists broadcast hate speech daily, calling for the extermination of these pests. Once a population is seen as insects, killing them feels more like extermination than murder. Over just 100 days, nearly 1 million people were slaughtered, often by neighbors, classmates, and former friends. Modern example: social media, bullying, and cancel culture. Dehumanization isn't just a weapon of war, it thrives online. In social media mobs, people are often reduced to a rumor, a controversial opinion. The internet strips away context, nuance, and empathy. Online, we don't see faces, we see avatars. And when someone becomes a villain in a viral narrative, thousands, even millions, pile on with threats, insults, and doxing. Some lose jobs. Some are driven to suicide. But the mob feels no remorse because the target stopped being a person. They became a monster, a threat, or the problem. But this isn't just a history lesson, it's a warning. This cycle is happening around us all the time, in workplaces, politics, and on social media. If you don't recognize it and don't learn how to resist it, you might become a part of it. The good news: awareness is our greatest weapon. If you see the small shifts, question authority, resist dehumanization, and speak up, you can break the cycle. The moment you say "this is wrong" is the moment you stop becoming a monster. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that the real evil lies not in monsters. It lies in ordinary people who stopped questioning. Stay aware, stay human.